Hello and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey, chapter 317. It is the first day of the week, aka the Kamehameha workout. I am feeling pretty good right now. A little full, but it is what it is. To the main subject matter for today. It is the final episode of the Seven Virtues series, looking finally at all of them, all throughout, interconnected, and putting them on a tier list because it's the internet and we have to put everything on tier lists. But I just wanted to do it because obviously I did it with the last thing, aka the seven deadly sins. I wanted to make a tier list there. You can see it right here. So I decided to do it for this series as well. So in that one, I felt like it was life ruination was like the ultimate goal at the end of it, right? The top ones are ones that you're gonna have to deal with a lot and could fuck you over very hard, and then kind of lowering it down depending on where you're at. Really, obviously they can all ruin your life and stuff like that. In this other case, I would say it's not necessarily the same. I think in this entire episode is going to be structuring it around the criteria of how difficult it is to partake in these things because of the world that we live in and everything else and all the outside influences that are kind of crushing into all of this. So the difficulties of what each thing can be. So the higher on the list, the harder it is to do. And I already have a few that I already know are going to be part of it. So we'll see how we get there. But just like the last video, this is going to be like a weird video within a video kind of style. So that's what we're going to do today. This entire series has been very eye-opening in the sense that I would like to know, why are these virtues not really necessarily talked about ever, really? I think we hear about popular media always looking at the bad and the evil, and I understand why, but I feel like there's never really the good answer. You can look at movies even like Seven, which I've used examples of in different videos and all this other stuff, but that movie is an example of a great movie, but it's about the sins, but they don't really necessarily talk about the other way around for it. So interesting how that works. They kind of just show the darkness of it. And it's a good story, but the other way around is never really talked about. Man, it makes you really think. It makes you really think, why am I being subverted like this? But anyways, Hollywood has nothing but my interests in mind, right? But anyways, that's a different subject for a different day. But I think it's just interesting to think about at least and just kind of analyze at least this part, because we know a lot about evil, but good is a little harder to know about, I guess. I think a lot of it, even in my series about good and evil, that's one of the harder things to really nail down about it, is because it's so different, I would say. It's very vast, but I hope to establish some guidelines within these things, because without guidelines, I think most people will kind of just freely roam wherever they desire, but their desires are easily influenced by others. So you got to be very careful about that. But with that being said, I will see you at Mother Base.
All right, so started this day off with dips, but anyways, back to the main subject matter at hand here, the 7 heavenly virtues tier list. So in today's tier list, we're going to be ranking them S through D. I think that this will be a little bit different in the sense that last time it was more in a sense of life ruination because they're the 7 deadly sins. This time, since it's the virtues, I guess the best one would put at the top is something that is most important in most people's lives. So I think that's where we're going to go. I think that the higher it is, the more important it is to make sure that you practice this. So let's start off with temperance. So temperance, I'm going to have to say B tier, not necessarily that much. It was the opposite of greed, something that, can get too bad, but at the same time, depending on what you have, not necessarily everybody has the option to not be greedy with what they have, because sometimes they just don't have anything at all. So I think that can kind of sway you depending, but it is a good idea to have some temperance in your life, of course, because of how things are, and having greed can be a shadow of things to come, especially if you get more and more, you can become greedier and greedier. So having some temperance and making sure that you're okay with a little less and making sure that you have what you have is good, but not quite essential as some of the other ones. So it is still good though. The next one up, chastity. Chastity is what I would put as A tier, especially in today's society, as we are very sexualized, especially the younger and younger people get. For some reason, it is more and more sexualized as you look into the world. From that lens, it really is trying to get you at a young age. So I do think it is important. It's balancing it all out. It is a tougher situation to be in rather than being in something else, because you have to kind of make sure that you can abstain from all of these things, because the power that the sexual acts and everything else has in the world is very strong and very potent too. So it is a good thing to have that, because a lot of things can happen if you don't have that under control. Relationships can get ruined. Lives can get ruined. Things can get flushed down the toilet if you let your lustful ideals just run wild. Now, humility, I have to say, I would want to put it in the B tier, but I feel like humility is something that is C tier, and in the sense that it is good to have some type of humility in your own life and to make sure that you're not getting too big for your britches, basically. But I think that because of how things are slightly in the societal levels, it is in a way or sense that we should have a little bit more pride in us than we have been conditioned to having. A lot of it is a weird sense of not even humility, but like a closing off, like you are less than nothing. And I think that that's an issue. I think there is some humility to have, but there's like an overabundance of it in certain areas where you're just too humble for some things like that. And I think that although it is important to remember that, I think you have to be prideful in certain areas so that way you can get further in life. Because if you aren't, I think that that's not going to open as many doors as you'd think. But it does make sense to have some type of humility about yourself and about the world, because sometimes you just don't know, and sometimes the world is trying to tell you something about your ego and you have to listen to it. But it's not as up there as important as it would be like something like chastity, where it could ruin you if you're too prideful. Next up, diligence, which I'm putting in B tier, which I do believe is an important factor into the world really today, because you have to be diligent with all the things that you're doing and making sure that you are progressing in your own ways, but steadily as well. You want to push yourself forward, especially in how things are going in the world. It isn't necessarily the S tier level or even A tier, because the world isn't kind of crushing you down, but it is important, because if without this, you're kind of setting yourself back a little bit, because you're being like lazy. You're being a sloth basically, and you're not continuing to push forward, even though it might not be that great or fun. It is still a good idea to continue to do that. Next up is kindness. Kindness is truly a hard one, because I would say technically you would want to be nothing but kind to others and put it in S tier. But at the same time, the world is a very unkind place, so you could in theory put it in D tier. I would probably say out of all of these, I would put it in a C tier, because it's not necessarily that important to be kind generally, but more so be kind to those who show kindness as well, if that makes any sense. Make sure that you have your guard up with people, because if people can easily exploit the kindness of you to others. But unfortunately, that's just the world, where you will get people who will exploit kindness to its most degree, and it's an important thing to remember that, because if not, you are going to get screwed over by someone, and it's very easy to see that. So there is a little bit of a wishing away of kindness, but always try to be kind to most people. So that's why I would put it as a C tier. Next up, patience, which I would say I'd put it at S tier. And I think that this is probably one of the most important virtues that is lost upon today's world and society, because I feel like a lot of people are impatient with a lot of their stuff. I mean, technology has made it so we are impatient for a lot of these things. When things don't work out as quickly as they could be, we all of a sudden are wondering, why is it not working? What's going on? What's happening? Having patience in general in the world helps out in so many ways and so many factors that other things will slow down and help you out. It's a very interesting ideal, but I really do think that patience is probably the most important, because whether it be something along the lines of dealing with having to show a child how to grow up, basically, or having to deal with others who have no manners or who lack all of these other virtues, making sure that you have the patience to deal with these people and try to continue on life, because you keep having friction with these types of people or things or events, then that will cause so many more issues, especially if you don't have the patience in order to just wait it all out and continue on and be the level-headed person that you could be. It is very important nowadays, especially because of how society and technology is trying to take away patience, basically. And it's such an important thing, and I think that most people can agree that patience in general is a good idea for most things. We have been conditioned as time progresses, as technology gets better, that patience isn't as necessary of a virtue because we can get everything in an instant. But in reality, that's not how things really work that are actually worth doing. So that's that. And then finally, charity. Which, out of all of these, charity is a very interesting one. I would want to say, honestly, technically, you could probably put all of these in S tier, but I'm going to say charity is also C tier. And the reason why charity is C tier is because charity is something that we would hope to be that either something that you can receive or get in a monetary way. But unfortunately, the reality of the world is that we are kind of fucked economically wise. So being charitable to others is just not as easy as it once was. And you can be charitable in other facets. For example, if you are very nice or allow the person some charity in your mental space or whatever they might want from you in that sense. It's still tough to do that, especially nowadays, because of how powerful the monetary ideal is in the world. So it's not something as easy as being able to go forth and just be like, here you go, here's $5. I did my good deed. It's not necessarily as simple as that. It's a harder thing, especially nowadays, but it is one of those things that you hope that one day you have the ability to do if you get that chance. Whether even it be somebody who you know or is in your family or is very, very close to you, it is still a good idea to be charitable to them regardless. So it's one of those things that even societies try to push you down into it. So, and there you go. Those are the tier list for the 7 virtues.
And we're back. Welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercises not filmed, none. Exercises skipped, also none. Got everything in, thankfully. But anyways, back to the main subject matter at hand, which, I'll be honest here, past me is not going to do a good job in giving this a kind of a good outro, kind of looking at it together. I think that future Oscar will have it more taken care of. So with that being said, I will pass it off to him right here.
Future Oscar here. So looking at it optically, the 7 virtues are very interesting dynamic to the 7 deadly sins. And I think I'm going to have to do a video looking and contrasting at both of them. Even though I've ran through all of them individually, I do think there is some elements of crossover that where both dynamics are interesting in a certain sense. And I don't want to just do it here. I think that here is a good closing of the just virtues. But when looking at the virtues, I think it is important that they're all important. That's the thing. And that we need to hammer them into people's psyche, especially nowadays, because it isn't hammered into people's psyche. So it is an important thing to remember, to say the least. I will say this, I am going to look at the dynamics between the two because it is a very interesting idea that I just had. So that'll be for a future episode. But with that being said, back to past Oscar.
Thank you, future Oscar. And with that being said, tell me what you think in the comment section down below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about this one, especially the entire tier list idea, but also the idea of just all the 7 virtues, looking at all these things and any other series that you might want to see in the near future. I would love to know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video with anybody who may or may not like it. I will be back on tomorrow with a new video. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I will see you in the next one. Keep it heavy. Stay safe out there. Stay cool. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.